Where's Fielder?
He's gone to the dogs.
Friends, welcome once again to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. It sure is my pleasure today to introduce to you one of my longtime friends. We're going to bring him to the microphone here in just a minute. As I'm coming to you this morning, on a Monday morning, this is Autumn Oaks Week. Man, oh man, this is like the event where history is made. I thought of that. I'll brag a little bit. When I was at UKC, I thought, man, so much history. So many great dogs have come through these gates at the fairgrounds, and their pictures taken and their names gone down in history. And in fact, our guest today was one of those guys who was his dog was named National Grand Night Champion at Autumn Oaks. But this is the big week at the Wayne County Fairgrounds in Richmond, Indiana. Be on September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Then they have their award ceremony on Sunday morning, the 4th. I do plan to be there. My old buddy Nubbin Moore from Alabama will be with me. We'll be kind of sharing our time between the American Cooner booth in the vendor's barn and over at the new media layout that the UKC has. I can't tell you too much about that because I don't know exactly what they have planned, but I know that they do have special space allotted for the podcasters. So we'll be there with the Gone to the Dogs podcast, and just really hope that you'll come by, howdy and shake a little bit with us, and let's catch up on old times. I will do my weekly chore of paying the bills, and that's through WHuntingsupply.com. That provides the platform for me to come to you each week on this podcast. If you need anything involving your hounds or hunting supplies, and especially the electronics involved that we depend on so much today, remember these good folks out there, Buddy and Jason and all the people at DUsupply.com. All right, it's the time that I've been waiting for here to introduce to you a friend of mine that, man, we go back a long time. John Sturgill from Midway, West Virginia. How in the world you doing, John?
Buddy, I'm doing great. Healthy as ever and able to walk good. Feeling fine, Steve.
Well, John, that's super. I know that you're kind of like the bionic man now. You've been through some surgeries and all, but let's back up just a little bit leading up to that. I want to get just a little bit of background for those people. I know anybody that hunts a Plott dog in the last 4 or 5 decades remember the name John Sturgill, and of course they usually associate you with the dog that you had back there named Timberline Tack, and we're going to talk a lot about Tack and his offspring and so forth. But tell me where you were born, your age, your children's names. I will express publicly, John, my sympathies. I know that you lost your wife, Diane, here within the last year or so. But just tell us a little bit about, your background there in West Virginia.
Okay, I came from a coal country, and my family was all coal miners, and I was born at Slab Fork, West Virginia, and that's nothing but just an old coal camp. Just about flatted to the ground now, but I was born August the 28th, 1949, and I married and lost my wife, but she's a great woman. Diane was her name.
Yes, she was.
I had three kids, John Jr., Mike, and Missy, and they're all healthy and doing well, but they've all lived through a working dad that coon hunted every time he could, so everything went well.
Well, do you have some grandchildren?
Oh gosh, I've got my son John's got 2 kids, Mark's got 1, and my daughter Melissa, she's got 2 daughters. I have only 1 grandson, Colt's his name, and I've got 1 great granddaughter, Isabel.
Oh,
and she
awesome.
She's my new life. Time I get her to run and tree, I'll be old.
Well, how old are? Well, you said you were born in 49.
49, yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
I'll be 73 August the 28th.
Well, that puts you about 3 years younger than me. I always knew you were a young buck, and trying to keep up with you back there in those hills on a night hunt or something
Well,
was so you could get through the woods, couldn't you?
Steve, I still can. I've been blessed. I've had 2 knees completely changed out, 2 hips completely changed out. I hunted all 3 nights at Plott Days. They never waited on me nary time. I can run with the big boys still yet.
Well, that's amazing, John. And I know that you worked in the coal mines yourself, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Give me a little of your history in
Well, I
in
was
the mines.
a welder mainly, and I was on the electrical force. I was a card carrying electrician, but my main function in the mines was a heavy duty welder. I was real good at welding. But I worked 34 years, a little more than that, and I come out. I don't have black lung, but I contribute that to non-smoking, outrunning hound dogs. Kept my lungs working all the time, and I was blessed with that, and I still have good lungs.
Well, that's awesome. It really is, because we know a lot of people in our back home, because the little town of Midway there where you live outside of Sophia, kind of between Sophia and Coal City, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I lived in Beckley, which we weren't all that far apart. So crow flies,
Oh,
it
no.
couldn't have been more than 10 or 15 miles at the most, I would think.
I'd say not even that far.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but we knew a lot of people, or I did, that worked in the coal mines. My grandfather on my mother's side was a coal miner. I've told my listeners many times he was one of those. He never owned up to it, but I chased it down once we got this internet thing, that he was come from the same descendants as old Devil Anse Hatfield down there. And
probably so.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's all part of the culture there where you live. But to be able to spend that many years in the mines and not have any side effects and not have any serious injuries or so forth. Did you ever get injured in the mines?
Oh, I've been hurt several times, but nothing major. A few broke bones here and there, but nothing that couldn't be mended.
You guys are tough, I tell you what, man, the people in that part of the country. All right, well, okay, you mentioned that you attributed coon hunting to your health and longevity and all. Do you remember when you first started coon hunting?
Yes, when I was big enough to keep up with my granddad and those that coon hunted. My dad would take me to people's house to go hunting when I was 10 or 11 years old.
But your dad didn't hunt himself?
He hunted. He hunted, but he wasn't a coon hunter. I got my coon hunter from my uncle and my grandfather on my mother's side. They was the coon hunters. I picked that up from Uncle Freeman and his dad Waldo Brammer. That's where I really got my love of dogs from. That end of my family.
Were they from that same part of West Virginia?
Oh yeah. They Waldo lived right here, the next house where I'm living now. My grandfather. I built my house on his property.
I see.
Freeman, he moved as soon as he got out of the military to Delaware to work in the auto industry, General Motors, and he lived up there until he retired and then come back home.
Well, I remember Freeman very, very well, and what a great guy he was. I always enjoyed talking to him and spending the time with him. And when we get to talking about Tack, we're going to see his name on Tack's papers as Freeman's Timberline Tack, correct?
Yeah. Now, while he was working, my other Uncle Dean Brammer, he's a great man too. He coon hunted, but he never went to the hunts and stuff. He and I, now we coon hunted, the old timey coon hunt. We went to the gun, shot them out, and trained dogs and coon hunted. Now Freeman's more or less into the night hunt part of it. He's into the glamour of it, winning the trophies and stuff. Now me and Dean, we was the We the coon hunters.
Right. Well, folks out there that are listening, if you could have met these guys back in the day, Dean and Freeman and of course John and all, it was a great time for me. I'd come back from the service. This was in the early 70s, I believe, wasn't it, John?
Yeah.
And,
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And always a lot of fun, always good to see these guys. And it's great for me to just sit here with you today, John, and to talk about them and to bring back the memories of those fellas. And I have one picture, and I think several people have probably claimed it around on the internet, that I took of you and Freeman and Dean of old Tack and Tack II and Tack III. That is one of my favorite pictures that I've taken down through the years. And wow, that was a great time. Well, I want to talk about that, but what about some of the early memories you have of coon hunting? What kind of dogs were you hunting when you first started?
I had a gray Plott dog. I called him Rusty, and he looked exactly like old Bayou Shorty. He was saddleback. He could have passed as Bayou Shorty's brother, but now he was grade. He was a grade dog, but he was probably the best dog I ever owned.
Wow.
He could tree a coon. He's the one that trained Tack, but now he was absolutely right now. If I had to pick the best, it'd be him, and old Tack would be the next.
I got you. Now, where did you get Rusty? Where did he come from?
He was a trade-up dog that nobody even knowed what he came from or nothing. I got him off of a chicken fighter that fought chickens, and he was mine till I lost him. I hunted him about 8 years, and he was real good. Then we picked up Tack, which come from Wayne Jefferson's place. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
And from then on, it was UKC registered or nothing from that day on.
I got you. So you got to be a Plott man pretty early in the game then.
My best dog was Rusty, and that kind of imprinted that brindle hair is hard to read out of a man. It sticks quick, you know.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I think my dad got infected with that back in 1954 when he went bear hunt. Well, actually went coon hunting to Williams River with a guy named Opal Bennett from out at Crow, West Virginia, and Dad was hunting an old gray, black, and tan. I've told the story many times, and I won't labor that, but those Opal had a couple Plott females, and they ran that bear, and that ruined my dad from that day on. He was done. He was a Plott man for life. So brindle dogs have a kind of way of doing that to a man, don't they?
Out of every breed they are, there's no other breed that can stand with the Plott. Once you own a good Plott dog, you could get the world champion this year, and he wouldn't suit you. There's just something about a Plott dog, his mannerism towards you, his obedience, and you can look in their eyes and tell they really like you. I mean, they're just a special breed of dog, a Plott dog is.
Well, they are, and I try to explain that to people. And I was just on the phone before we hooked up here today, John, with my buddy Mark Miller down in North Carolina, and he's a walker man. I mean, he's had walkers for a good long time and had some real good ones. And he wanted to try a Plott. So he and I have gone in partnership on a young dog out of Bill Shinniger's Lazarus dog that, and I think Mark is learning some of what you're talking about there because he really likes this young Plott dog and enjoys hunting him and talks about how smart he is and all. I know that everybody out there that has a favorite breed, whether it's blue tick, black and tan, red bone, English, that they love their breed, and there's something about that breed that just kind of clicks with them. But man, I think the Plott people have kind of a special relationship with their dogs. I think it's what you expressed here. I know it's been that way for me too. all my life long. When Dad brought home that first registered Plott from Opal Bennett, he bought one of those females that ran that bear. Actually traded a rifle for her. And I saw that dog. I'd never seen one, And she was about coal black. She had a gray mouth. She had a few brindle hairs down by her feet, But it just transformed me right there. Well, that's terrific. Okay. So anybody out there that knows John Sturgill knows that he had a dog that everybody across the country at one time or the other heard the name of and it's talked about, and that's the dog named Timberline Tack. Tell me how Tack came into your life and that story as much as you can, John.
Well, Tack, he came here. A friend of mine named Carlos Howerton. We look at these coon books and dream about dogs, and we read this ad. Wayne Jeffers, probably one of the first he put in there, the little corner in the full cry book, had pups for sale and stuff. So we call Wayne up and order this pup. And at that time, Wayne's delivery service was his tractor trailer brother, drove a tractor trailer, and sometimes he'd put a pup in a peach crate on a load of lumber and send it out like that. That's how he distributed his dogs. But anyway,
Timberline Express.
Like yeah. His brother brought the pups in a pup crate. But anyway, we got old Tack here, and he started super young. There's an old dirt road people throw trash on. They drop cats and stuff out there. So we started Tack on cats. And man, he just run them, treat him to beat the band. And now Carlos really, really ordered Tack. I had the great dog named Rusty. All right. And after I seen what Tack done, it was my life ambition to get that little dog. So I outswindled Carlos out of that dog and got him.
No.
And from then on, he was here. Well, I love my Uncle Freeman, and he wanted a dog, and I had Tack trained, and I had dogs, so I let him have him. And he took him to Delaware, and he hunted him coon hunting. Well, he put the fur in his mouth. I'd get him back in the spring. Well, he was ours, both of us. I'd get him back in the spring, and I started putting him in the night hunts, and he excelled real well. He just done good. He's the type of dog you can hunt with anything. Mean dogs, it didn't matter. If they was fighting off a tree, he'd back up 10 foot and go round and round a tree. They couldn't catch him, but he wouldn't leave. Same dog every night. Good cold nose. Took his tracks as they came. Cold or hot, it didn't matter. A wonderful hound. And he won about wherever I put him. He could win in any terrain.
Well, I remember you made a big splash down at Southeastern Walker Days with him, didn't you?
Yeah, he won opposite sex high scoring male at Southeastern Walker Days. I don't think he was but 2 Plotts in the whole hunt then. That was way back there, and Plott dogs they wasn't hunted that much hardly.
But you got to think that there was an awful lot of Walker dogs at that hunt.
Yeah, there was several Walker dogs. But he could hold his own with any of them. And he done good at Plott Days. He won the Isaiah Kidd Award once, and he won back-to-back night champions Friday night and Saturday night one time. He done real good. Old Tack, he was a winner. He qualified for World Hunt AKC. He placed top 10 in Grand American, and he won a UKC qualifier, one of the first ones they come out. Qualified him. I never did take him to the World Hunt, but I wished I had him right now. I would take him.
Yeah. Well, everybody in our part of the country there knew he was a coon dog, and if they drew you, they knew by the time that cast was over just how much coon dog he was. You've always been kind of like to have fun, John, and
oh yeah,
there's a lot of stories about some of the jokes you played on people, like trying to act like Tack was following you through the woods, and he'd be in there probably a half mile somewhere and get struck and things like that. Do you remember any of those stories?
Oh, I've done that several times. I'd act like he's embarrassing me. He'd act like I throw a rock in the bush. Get out of here, Tack. When the judge wasn't looking, them other guys just look at you like you're crazy, and they'd look for that dog, and he wasn't there, And then all at once, about a half mile, like you say, in there, I'd strike Tack. But it was all in fun. It's
Yeah.
the money in the hunts kind of took the fun out of it, and the sportsmanship. To me, that's just my opinion. That kind of ruined you, buddy coon hunting.
Well, back in the day, at our club, I think when you came along and all, we'd kind of already got started maybe having a few night hunts and stuff. But, back in the day when I was a kid growing up, our club was out at Stanford at the Union Hall out there. And we didn't have any night hunts, really. We'd occasionally have a buddy hunt. I remember one of the very first buddy hunts we had, the Dickens boys from down around Whitesville way came up, and the boy Ricky, I don't know if he's still around and coon hunting and all. Do you remember Ricky?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if even he's still alive now or not.
Well, I haven't heard anything from those guys at all. But I remember him winning the first hunt that we had. Took him out there to what we call the old Charleston Cold Tipple Hollow there from Piney View and Mount Hope out there, and he managed to tree a coon out there. That was a miracle in itself, right there.
Back then, we had very few coons. You know that.
Oh yeah, very, very few. Well, so let's just explain just a little bit more about this phenomenal dog that has shown up on so many pedigrees. Let's unsnap the snap on Tack and tell me just about like how he's going to go hunting, what he's going to do to get a coon tree.
When you unsnap the lead on Tack, he went hunting. You never got him back till he was treed. He'd go hunting, and he took what he had first. He took his whatever track. It didn't matter. He could run it cold. He could run it hot. And if dogs run off, game off, they was badly beat. And if the dogs that blowed through the country getting there 3 mile and get treed, he'd tree 2 before you get to him. He was he was that kind of dog. He was one of the better ones. And he reproduced several good dogs.
Yeah, he did, and we want to talk about that too. You've already kind of touched on some of the major things he won, which was really significant for a Plott dog in that day, because, and especially coming out of the country that he came out of, because, as you said, we didn't have coons, really. I mean, my dad would tell me if I was down on Camp Creek trout fishing or something, if you see a coon track in the sandbar there, you rub it out with your foot, and we'll go back and see if maybe we can tree it,
When they found a coon track back in, Steve, that coon, he was one of the most wanted, like the FBI. Every coon hunter in the state was after that boy till they got him.
Oh, boy, that's right. That's for sure. And you had to be careful. And you always were. You always played things pretty close to the vest. You didn't just take anybody along hunting with you into your spots, did you?
No, I found out that you can teach a dog more wrong by hunting with a bunch of dogs than you can help him. Now, I know you got to train the dog to hunt with dogs if you're going to hunt him in the hunts, but you can take these dogs with line them up, and that babbling dog babbles every time you drop them. Pretty soon, yours is going to start babbling with her. So, I mean, I kind of oscillated mine. I know the dog that I was putting mine with before I hunted with it. And I never wanted to hunt with a dog that was face barker on a tree or mean on a tree, because dogs pick up on other dogs' actions and things like that, I believe.
Oh, yeah, for sure they do. And it sounds like you've been listening in to the phone conversations that my buddy Mark Miller down there in North Carolina and I've been having about this young dog that we've got, and we were contemplating putting him in his first hunt here just recently, and he's only 10 months old. And, just that thing came up, and Mark says, well, I'll see what we got for an entry and what the dogs are like and so forth, before I put him in there. And,
I would too. It can affect him.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
for sure. And well, to move on along, of course. All right, you started breeding tack some, I know, and I don't think you really campaigned him hard or anything like that, but you did breed quite a few females to him, didn't you?
We did. We bred several, but now he was past 5 years old before we ever bred him. All right, by the time you find out 2 years after that, time you find out a dog is a real reproducer, then you got a small window to get dog pups out of them. We waited. Of course, I wasn't no breeder, and just young in the Plott breed. But if I knowed what I know now, man, I'd have collected him and Tack II. But just didn't know it back then.
Well, that's right. We didn't. And I know, I had a favorite or two down through the years that I wished I had collected, and I didn't, and
Oh yeah.
and now you really can't. We discussed that too with this young dog. If he continues to go the way he is now, he could go any direction at that age. But right now, he's really pleasing us. Well, we've already thought about it. It'd be wise to collect him while he's young, if he does finish one out to a nice dog.
I would collect him, Steve, before you ever breed him. I would collect him. You know what I mean? I'd kept him early because I think the best dogs come from your younger dogs. And he's seeming strong now. And 10 years from now, you'll have this young semen there. I'd do it today if I really liked him. And if he pans out, he ain't no good and don't reproduce, you don't have to keep it forever.
Well, that's true.
Throw it out of the refrigerator.
That's good advice, John. Very good advice. And I know the people that listen, we have a lot of younger hunters and a lot of new hunters that listen to the podcast. And because I get their questions, they send them in Messenger or text messages or sometimes an email. And I know they appreciate this kind of advice and information from veteran hunters like yourself.
Yes, sir. We need to pass it on to them.
Well, we do, for sure. Okay, so we've kind of talked a little bit about Tack II. Tell me what he was out of and what was his story.
Well, Tack II, he was son of Tack. First pup born to Tack. Les Bolen had traded up an old Gyp Tar Heel Ginger from a man named Harold Stanley. And we bred her and got those pups. And Bolen and I was like two 12-year-old boys waiting on them in the field watching her have them. And the first one that came out was Tack II, all brindle. And I said, that's my pick. I want that pup. He said, how you want that one? I said, that's good enough for me right there. And that was the firstborn pup I raised out of him, and I kept him. And we done real well. But the lighter colored all brindle streaks that Tack II had, that really came from what Les had traded up, the Tar Heel Ginger dog. And she had a great mouth, and he did too. But that was his generation. That's where he come from. But he made a wide hunting dog. He wasn't the earliest starting dog I ever owned.
John, I'll jump in there right quick. I remember one time hunting with you when he was pretty young, and you had Black Joe too, and we'll talk about him. But they typical of a lot of pups. They weren't showing a lot of hunt that night. They were just kind of glad to be there.
Right. Well, seems like some of those dogs out of Tack did start. They did start late. Some Shelby Ballard had bred, and they started late. But when they started, the next night you catch coons from them. I mean, you want to shoot it one night, and the next night it's catching coons. I can't explain that, but just call it a later starting dog. That's all you can say.
Well, yeah.
But when Tack II did start, he started. The first coon he treed off by himself. From then on, it was uphill, buddy. He done good. He made dual grand, and he's off the sex winner at Plott Days one year. I lost it by 25 points, but the dog at won Plott Days was a female out attack owned by Ronald Hayworth's Penny. That beat me out. So she had she won Isaiah, and I won off the sex. But now Tack II went on to do good in big hunts. He's I believe he's 82 and 83, Autumn Oaks, Grand National Grand Night Champion Plott dog, high scoring dog on his cast and all. done real good. He qualified for AKC World Hunt at Grand America, and he qualified for the UKC World Hunt. I never did take him, but he's a super nice dog too.
He was just an awesome looking dog too.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
he's
big proud dog, big blocky head, just beautiful color, kind of a golden brindle color. I mean, he was, if you sit down and wanted to draw up a stud dog, man, he was it. I mean, he really,
yeah, he was a good looking hound, cat footed. He throwed good looking pups too, and he throwed good dogs too.
Yeah,
he throwed good dogs.
Now he was a little. You mentioned old Tack hunting not wide, but I think Tack II hunted a little wider than his daddy, didn't he? Or did
I don't know if he hunted wider or wanted to get by himself more.
I see.
He wanted to be by himself. I mean, you turn him loose, and if they was running, sometimes, man, I wonder why he ain't running with that thing. And they'd get treed, and then all at once, before you could even get to their tree, he'd be to the right of him a quarter mile, just turn a tree down. I mean, he loved by himself. He did that.
Yeah,
he'd run with him, but no, he'd run by himself.
He was a little tighter on track than old Tack was.
Yeah, he was a lot tighter. We'd sometimes they'd say, "Buddy, that dog's still mouth." And when he'd get treed, sometimes I'd strike and tree him. He'd be in there real deep. He'd just get struck and treed. And they'd say, "That dog's still mouth." It's nobody. That's a layup coon. Your dog just can't smell it, or they'd be barking, wouldn't they? So I'd drop that on them. They wouldn't know what to say on that.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, he was, and of course, to be national Grand Night champion, Plott at Automotes was quite an honor, because I'm sure he wasn't the only one there.
No, he wasn't the only one there, and he's cast winner. He wasn't just, used to be if you come in behind a good Walker dog with 200 plus, you got the Plott trophy.
Yeah.
And I guess then it was a high scoring Plott dog, but when you cast a big hunt like that and get your breed win, you've got a pretty decent hound. That goes for today and then.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, there's an old saying, and you may be in the one that I first heard it, but the deader the better. But those dogs were absolutely good dogs that were capable. I bet you'd like to have either one of them back, wouldn't you?
Oh, kind of give them a wisdom tooth. I ain't old enough to cut them yet, but sure give one of them for one of them.
I bet you. Well, okay, and I know that you bred Tack II. I know that my dad bred a female to Tack II, and boy, that was a shame. The puppy that we had, that my boy had out of that, was really a dandy. Oh man, and he got killed on the road, got out of the pen, and got smacked on the interstate. And I think that's what broke my boy coon hunting, I'll be honest with you. He'd gone to Plott Days that year there in Michigan, and had a ball all weekend and won a little trophy in the kids' bench show with that pup. So he was all about it then, but that took the wind out of his sails for sure.
It will. It'll set you back. I've been set back so many times like that. But now I had a pup out of that cross, and it was a female dog. Mm-hmm. She started to beat the band running and treeing to beat the band. And I had several good dogs. Well, Gary Holt, a friend of mine in the lists, he didn't have nothing to hunt. So Gary was hunting that female. And I mean, she was tearing up the world. I mean, running, treeing to beat the band. And Gary wanted to buy her. And I said, man, I can't sell that dog. I'm going to use that dog in my breeding program. And Gary was road hunting them. And he ran over that pup and killed it too. At a young age.
Yeah.
So, what the rest of them done or when, I don't know. But mine and yours both would have made something if we'd got to keep them.
Yeah, that female that Dad bred to Tack II, we called her Fancy II. And she was out of old Bear Pen Fancy, who was in the Hall of Fame. And
a treeing machine, I remember.
And Bronco, the dog that I was kind of my all-time favorite,
And Bronco was, to my opinion, the gamiest hound I've ever been in the woods with. I've only owned one dog, and that was the Black Joe dog off of Tack. It was nearly that gamey. But Bronco, when you put him down a holler, something in that holler had a bad day. Bronco's going to take it out of there, run it, tree it, or whatever, but he's going to do something.
Yeah,
He was
I
a good one.
enjoyed the dog. I think you and Bolen and Dad treated a bobcat one night.
We did. We treated a bobcat.
Tell
We
them
was
that
whooping ours.
story.
Well, we was hunting in a place, little hunting town called, well, Talcott's where it was, and we turned in a corn patch and stuff, and the dogs went on in there deep. They got struck, and they was running. Old Bronco, he got treed. Holman treed him, and ours fell in, treed with him, and we go to the tree, and by land, there's a big bobcat up the tree. And Bolen and I, we were diehard break dogs, coon hunting, and night hunts, and everything's trashed at a raccoon. So we started whooping on ours. Hold it, boys. Holman said, hold it, boys. I said, I'm going to tell you right now, if y'all hunt Plott dogs do things like this. You can't correct them. They're going to do it anyway. I mean, he was the teacher of all, Holman was. But we had a good time. And all three of those dogs ended up in the Hall of Fame. So that wasn't a bad group of dogs.
That was not a bad group at all. It was not, for sure. I'd be very happy to have any one of them myself.
Oh, Lord, yeah. The Duchess dog that Bolen had, if I was to rate her right now, she's one of the top 3 females I ever been in the woods with. She was what Homer would say, a dandy. She was to me his best dog he's ever owned.
Yeah, old Dutch was she was kind of an outlaw of sorts.
Yeah,
but she could get that coon tree and she could win that cast on you too. I speak from experience. Yeah.
She hunted good, treed hard, nice hound. Nice dog.
Well, you bet. And there was a lot of good dogs around there. You mentioned Carlos Howerton. He had some good dogs. And
oh yeah, he never did get into it real big, and he got out fast. Ron Hayworth, he had Plott dogs there for a while. Hayworth, yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He had Penny and a dog he called Tiger. He was off Tack II and all, but he had a couple of nice Plott dogs too.
Yeah. Well, Plotts were kind of, and I think you had a lot to do with that, John, with your success with Tack and Tack II and so forth. There was a lot of Plott dogs in our part of the country. I think, didn't Tobe Bauer and Ronnie and them, didn't they have a Plott at one time?
Yeah, they had, Tobe had an old dog, I forgot what his name was, but anyway, he had and he came from Berlin's place. His good dog did. He came from Berlin King's place, and then he bought I give it to him. I give him a little female off of Tack II, and boy, she was the prettiest thing you ever laid your eyes on. I think you seen her one time. She's a real real like Tack II,
Mm-hmm.
and she was doing good, but she got killed too.
Yeah, that's they just don't live long enough, and especially the good ones don't, do they?
No. But from these Tack dogs, I've tried to keep close as I could. I think I've had 10 grand, or mostly night champions, but 5 or 6 of them was dual grand out of Tack line.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Well, another good hound that you had there, and I believe you sold him to Larry Everson out in Indiana, was the Sturgill's Black Joe dog.
Yeah, Black Joe was he was a nice dog. He hunted in a circle, busy, fast, wide open kind of dog. He if I had to fault him, he was a ball mouth tree dog, and cold nose, good disposition, not mean. But when people would come to breed or look at dogs, they wouldn't even look at him on account of Tack and Tack II. I mean, he was just kindly in a pen, but what they come to look at,
Right.
That happens, but he was a real nice dog.
Yeah, I remember him well, and I think Larry had some success with him out there and liked him and all, and that's all that matters. Well, let's talk about Tack III then.
Well, he was kind of in the same league Black Joe was there. He was the 3rd generation off of Tack, but there you got Tack and Tack II, their titles and everything they've done. They didn't come to breed the Tack III. They come to breed one of the other two. But now he did win Plott days. He's Isaiah Kid winner. But I didn't hunt him in a whole lot of night hunts, But he was a real good dog. he was the lesser of the other two, but he was still a real fine dog.
Yeah. Now, he was actually your Uncle Dean's dog, wasn't he? Or was
No? He was Freeman's.
Oh, okay.
Dean didn't hardly know dogs. He just hunted what we had.
Yeah. He just liked to hunt, didn't he?
He loved to hunt, but he'd rather for you to feed it and take him hunting. He'd go with you, you know what I mean? But he'd rather for you to feed it and vaccinate it.
I got you.
But now he was, Tack III was a real nice dog. A lot of people liked him better. He opened good on the ground, and but now he didn't hunt as far as wide as neither one of the other two. They was a little bit better. Well, then I had, he was off of Tack II, and then Tack II throwed me one named Taxi. She was dual brand.
That was she was out of the dog from down in North Carolina, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was.
Grand Night.
She came out of a dog named Stuart Bullet. Her mother did.
Yeah.
And
Max
that's
Stewart.
where I got in on that. Yeah. Max Stewart's Bullet dog sired Taxi's mom. Cricket was her name.
Right.
She was dual grand show, grand night. We had her up here hunting for a while. She was a fantastic little dog. She was a real nice dog.
Well, that was quite an impressive cross back then to breed two dual grands, Yeah, but just the fact that you got, in the Plott breed, because, listeners should know, and I know they realize this, the Plott has always been the fewest in number in the UKC registry. Even fewer Plotts registered than red bones. And, dual grands were not a dime a dozen in the Plott breed. And there's a few things that come into play there. Plott people basically breed to what's in the backyard.
Right.
And they, and they don't get out to town with their dogs the way the Walker people do and some of the others. But to have a litter there of dual grands, out of two dual grand champion dogs was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Now, Randy Lester had a sister to her, Sandy. She was dual grand. I think Larry ended up buying her off of Randy, but and then there was another one, a night champion out of it. But I hunted with about 5 out of that litter, and every one of them running tree to beat the band. It was probably Tack II's best cross, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's that's what Taxi was out of.
Yeah, that's what she was. And the best one I had, the stud feed pup I got, I called him Rambo. He was a dark brindle like Tack, no white on him whatsoever. He started super young, running treed. I've never heard a hard tree dog to this day. And I lost him at what they call Monco Lake. He started running deer after he got training on coons. He ran a deer off. We was camping up there, and I said, "Well, he'll be back." I've never seen him to this day. So he was probably my greatest loss of every pup I liked that I lost.
And those were the days with no tracking collars, no telemetry.
Oh, we didn't have tracking collar in. It was gasoline hit the road.
Yeah, it was a different time back then, and to have a wide hunting dog, a dog that I won't say they were running coons, but many a time we turned in the head of going down Mill Branch there toward the head of Camp Creek, and them young dogs, that old Sam would strike them deer, and we'd have to go down to the park, down to Camp Creek Park to get them.
And I know people holler their Plott dogs are stone broke. They may be. But every one of them I've had stone broke, born natural stone broke. They're kind of a little bit lazier than these wide open dogs. They don't hunt as far. They don't put out as hard. But you take it, to me, the Plott dogs I've had to break made my better dogs. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I've always had to break them, but they were easy broke.
Right. They pursued. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, looking back at my years in Michigan when I had all those coons, of course, that's part of the story right there, and easily breaking a hound is having coons to tree with him, But it seemed to me like the ones that wanted to be a little junky, when they were young, just take about one or two times with that electronic trainer,
Oh
set
yeah.
them up a little bit and know for sure what they were doing and give them that phone call, and they seem to catch on pretty quick, and that's
Yeah,
what I
that
always
beeper's
kind of liked about them.
me too, buddy. If it's got it in it, you can break it out of it too. That's right.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, okay. So tell me about your dogs down from like you mentioned earlier. You're still hunting and hunting hard, obviously. How many nights will
Yeah.
you go a week now? Of course, I know it's
Oh,
summertime.
I worked 6 days a week, but I hunted 7.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I went to work, I hadn't had a whole lot of sleep,
Mm.
and I was probably more hateful at work than I was in the woods.
Well, it's a good thing
That's
you was
tired.
welding instead of playing with that electricity so much,
Oh
maybe.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I've had several good ones, and a little dog I bred Taxi to sizzling heat one time, and I kept a little female, called her Mary Jane. I made her she's Grand Show night champion, but now I was working out of town then. I was driving about 80 miles to work, and I didn't get to hunt her in a night hunt. So I had 4 wins on her, and she'd have been dual grand. And also, I picked up a dog out of Sarge called Bo. I made him a
Yeah.
night champion.
Yeah.
Well, the ambition to me was to finish both those 2 dogs to grand, and it would have been an all grand litter on both those 2 dogs. The pups would have been all grand, but I never did get to finish neither one of them. I sold Bo, and Mary Jane finally died off, but I've had my share of pretty good ones.
Well, that's been an issue with the Plott breed too, is to find the dogs, to produce an all grand litter. To me, I think that's something good to talk about. It definitely indicates that the dogs on the pedigree were coon dogs for sure.
Oh yeah, yes sir.
But I often joked with this horse dog that I had. He was out of the Clyde dog that Les Bolen had, and if Hoss had a made Grand Night champion and his mother was a night champion, he could have sired an all grand litter, and that's ifs and buts, but he just about had to breed his litter mate because I could find,
Yeah.
there wouldn't have
Hell.
been another one around, So it hasn't been that the Plott breed has really focused in on that. But man, that would have been awesome if you could have got that all grand litter.
Yeah,
there.
it'd been an all grand pedigree like that. But
Pretty
I've hunted other stocks of Plotts. It ain't just been. But I've tried to put some tack dogs in it, or come out of tack dogs. Like the Bow dog, he had Tack was his grandsire out of Queen Star. That's the reason I ended up keeping him.
Yeah. Now
I mean,
Star was out
everything I've Charlie Short is Queen.
Right. Correct.
Like that. So everything I've had, I mean, I'm not colorblind, or I put a win on Sarge and Heat. A lot of people wouldn't put one on Tack 3 because it's out of Sturgill Tack 3. I ain't gonna hunt that in the hunt. You know what I mean? But that's just them, not me. You show me a good one, I don't care what his name is, I'll hunt him.
Well, I think that is detrimental to anybody's breeding program to be kennel blind,
Amen to that.
And, I loved Everett Weems. I loved him. He was a dear, dear friend. And we got some good dogs from Everett. But Everett, what was in his kennel was what was best. He could sell you the litter mate to that dog, but his was better. I mean, Everett, I've talked, I spent many nights in the woods with Everett, and he's one of the greatest Plott breeders that ever lived, I believe. But
yes,
he was like that, and I think if we do that, we get colorblind or kennel blind, I guess is the word I want, is, we're only kidding ourselves. There's something better out there. We need to get some of it, or I do anyway.
If it's better than mine, I want part of it. Or it's good, I'll mix it in with mine, That's like they say, better to better,
Well, it's just like in my personal experience with these bear pen dogs. My dad was a bear hunter. He bred for bear hunting. He didn't even raise a litter usually until the dog was old. because he wouldn't keep them out of the woods long enough to breed them. But I was sorry that I let that bear pen line of dogs slip away due to my work and circumstances, personal life, everything else. I just couldn't keep breeding those dogs. And so, when I got the opportunity to get a dog from Kevin Lundholm up there that had a lot of good dogs in his pedigree, I took the opportunity, and that's where I got the old Hoss dog. And I liked that dog. I really had a lot of good years.
He was smart. He was smart.
Yeah, he was. He's the smartest hound I ever followed. And then
yeah, he was super smart.
So now, Bill Shenager ended up with a daughter out of him. And unfortunately, she had some health issues that we didn't know about, but we were able to breed her to that Lazarus dog of his, and that's where this young dog I've got now is. And, he's all across the board with his breeding, but there's a lot of good dogs on that pedigree, a lot of good dogs. And in his case, it's seeming like it's going to work, but
it'll work. It'll work. You hunt them and they'll work.
Well, I want to talk about some other dogs that you've had recently, fairly recently and all. And one of them I got to hunt with one night. I think you and me and Les went out on a little AKC hunt one night and all. But you had the female named Duchess. Where'd she come from and what? Tell us about her.
Well, we called her Duchess. She was in a pen at Plott Days, and I was looking at the male dogs. He was double tack bred way back there. And this little jib kept coming up to me and just screaming, standing on that cage. I kept pushing away, looking at those males, and she kept doing that. I said, well, I'll just take this thing. And it was little Dutch. So brought her home. She was, what was she? She may have been 7 months old. Never had a collar on her, never been led, never had a collar. And Bolen said, I'm gonna go kill a coon tonight. So I'll go. We'll take his pup. So we go out and he runs and they run and tree a coon. Old dogs do. And I got her there under the tree, and I took that coon, drug it down through the woods, and put it up a bush. She ran it and treed it, sat there and treed. Well, good. Next Saturday we went. Next Saturday night, have a name tag and collar on her end, done had her leading. So we turned them up a little branch, and the old dog struck. They're running up a creek. She strikes right in there behind them, running like a field trial beagle. They run up through there and they get treed. She hits the brush. I'm trying to catch her to put her on the tree. I can't catch her. I go back to Bolen. I said, let her go. All at once, she pulls up in a little old white oak tree in a field light. She trees, screaming up the tree. We go in there last night and said, look at her. She got a lyric kittens tree. The first time in the woods, she treated coon, and from then on, it was uphill every day, buddy. She done good.
Yeah, and she did quite a bit of winning, did she? I know she really looked good in the AKC hunts there when I was with AKC. What'd you win with her?
Well, first off, UKC, I made her grand show, grand night, and a little bit of the story there. When she come, my wife was really getting sick. I had to put a lot of time in with my wife. But UKC, and I took her to the Grand National. I took her to Autumn Oaks. She won third high scoring dog of the whole hunt. And she won the Grand National Grand Night Champion at Autumn Oaks through UKC. And then you went to AKC. I said, well, I'm going to follow my old buddy. So I registered her up to AKC, and she made night champion. Well, she made show champion, super show champion before she could go. And then she went on and made night champion, grand night champion on, and then put her in the national hunt. She won the Grand National AKC Plott dog, and then World Hunt come up, put her in that. And she won top 16 of that, and I should have won that hunt, to tell you the truth. She got a raw break on a tree, but
I remember that. That was down at Orangeburg.
Yeah, she everywhere I took her, it didn't matter. She shined. I liked her. I probably won more with her than I had every tack dog owned.
And what was her breeding, John?
It was Red River Gypsy was her mother, and they was just those old Red River dogs. they had Plott days up there one time where Red River runs through, and I didn't even know where Red River was. But anyway, she was a phenomenal dog, won a lot, but I was like Holman. I'd rather hunt her as breeder. She had 5 puppies, and one of those died, and that's all the puppies that she ever raised. And Jack's my dual grand Jack dog now. He's off of a daughter off of Duchess. That's the last of her I've got. But now I bred Jack into the mud dog from Tennessee, my church dog, which is heavy tack bred. And that's what I'm carrying right now. The dogs I got now kind of generated from that. But
okay.
Dutch was super nice.
Yeah,
super nice
she was from all indications. And what I wanted, explain to me how she operated.
She, by herself, you wouldn't want her. She didn't hunt wide enough, but you line her up with 3 Walker dogs, and you could see that switch turn on. She'd get to quivering. And when you release that beast, nothing could get in front of her. And I never had one of them to tree in front of her, even on the night hunts in the world hunt. She'd pull a tree out from under those big long-legged Walker dogs every time. She was super competition dog. Super competition.
Yeah, some of them are just born for that, They just seem like
I guess she'd split tree and have a coon every time. She treed split more than any dog I ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be hard for me not to get her back if I could pick one of them, just to be honest with you.
Well, how long did she live? How old was she?
She died about 7.5 years old.
Ooh, that's early. Yeah.
Yeah, she died a little early.
Yeah.
I think she developed a little heart trouble. And she had Lyme's disease once, but now, man, she's a super good dog.
Yeah, she was.
I wished I'd have bred her more.
Was she a ball or chop mouth dog on track?
She's chop mouth. She had a diehard good locate.
Yeah.
She had a real locate.
Well, I remember just from that one little hunt we took, I think it was just an hour hunt or whatever. She was a good tree dog.
Yeah, but now when you went, we was in the correcting program, me and her. She started sliding in there and backing them dogs on Slick Tree. I worked on her. I don't like that. But now we come together, and at the end, we was really united, her and I.
Well, that's what happens when a good dog man's got a good dog. They kind of get together somewhere along the way there. All right, so she produced the Jack dog. Now, do you still have Jack?
Yeah, Jack's alive, but now Jack's 9, and Jack's been a real reproducer. But I never advertised him on account of my wife's health. And when I breed a dog, I want to go hunt with that dog I'm breeding to. You know what I mean? Yeah. Unless he's just a stone down reproducer, throwing everything good, then you don't have to hunt with it because you're breeding for his ability to reproduce. But I like to hunt with the dog I'm going to breed to.
Yeah. Well, the Jack dog now, he's a Grand Night, isn't he?
He's dual grand. I've hunted him at Plott Days 3 times a Thursday night, and I placed him all 3 times. He qualified for the world hunt. And be honest with you, Jack is the best I've ever owned to catch a coon with. I mean, you can put him in a short, small patch of woods. He's like a squirrel dog. I believe he checks every tree in that woods, and he'll tree every coon that's in there too. He's a real coon dog. Real coon dog.
Gotcha. Well, to the listeners that have been with us now almost an hour, John, if you can believe that.
When I talk to a friend, I have no time.
That's right. Well, I feel the same way, buddy. And we're not done yet. But, if people that have been listening to our conversation today have to see the thread that's going through this. I mean, dog after dog that has finished out in the Grand Night Champion in a breed that it has never been overly blessed with Grand Night Champion dogs. Dogs that have been successful in competition, dogs from different lines of dogs and everything else. There's a common thread that runs all through that to me, and something that I learned way back in those days in West Virginia is that you're one heck of a dog man, John. You understand dogs. You know how to get the best out of them. What's your philosophy about that?
Well, my philosophy is these Plott dogs, They come and they have one thing that they like to do better themselves. It may not be treeing a coon. It may not be running a bear. And their goal in life might be to bay a hog. And if that dog don't have what you want in it, you just supposed to let somebody else have it. You can't never get what you want. Some dogs prefer a bear over a coon. Some dogs are afraid to death of a bear to love a coon. You got to get that dog. It's on the same level as you're on, pursuing the same game you want. Then you can train that dog and get the best of his ability out of him.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now, about how early do you start your pups?
Well, there's a window on a dog, and and some Plott dogs start super early. Some Plott dogs don't start till they're 10 months old or even a year. But I like those that start from 5 to 7. That you sight stuff. They can see and they get excited and they start treeing. Then you start working with them, on what game you want.
Right.
But the night hunt dogs, the dog I really like now hunting in my country, you can't hunt. I like to pull up, put him off the tailgate of a truck, send him in there, don't move till he gets treed, and then go get him. That's John Sturgill's type of dog.
I got you. Well, I understand that. And we didn't grow up hunting that way. We turned the dog up a hollow and we set out walking. And hoped we could hear that dog before he topped out somewhere, But
back in you had to walk, you had to hunt a coon, and the man sometimes was smarter than the dog hunting it. We know what coons is eating when things is in. That's another key to it. Where's the coon at? What's he eating this time of year? And then you put your dog in that area. There's a lot to it.
That right there should be in the coon hunter's manual for every young hunter. They ought to have to take a course. And
I'll give them another one if you want me to.
Absolutely.
It'll help them in the night hunts. You young guys, if you look at that tree, look at the moon first. Is that moon a banana or is that moon full? Notice your coon where you find him at on the full moon night versus when it's dark at night. There's a place in that tree that coon will be every time on that full moon night. And it'll be closer to the base of that tree. When you learn that, you know where to find the coon in your night hunts instead of flashing it everywhere. The moon will tell you where the coon is at. Have you ever heard that, Steve?
I have not really heard that put exactly that way, John. I know
you
that
pay attention to it, you'll see it to be true.
Well, my dad was always telling me, they're hunting in the mountains, that usually, to find a coon in the tree, he'd be on the downhill side on the tree. My dad believed that coon would be more times than not, you would find him on the downhill side.
Holman told me that.
Did he?
Yes, sir.
He believed that. He really did. And he wasn't a big fan of hunting the dogs on moonlight nights. He used to tell me when he'd go away to work, he worked in pipe fitting on the Ohio Valley, and he'd be gone all week, and he'd say, don't take my dogs out there. That moon's going to be full, and it's cold. Don't take them out there on them old moonlight nights. You're going to just get them running trash. You're not going to tree a coon. If you do get after one, you're not going to see it.
That's true. Now I'll tell you another one that I think, too. Your tighter mouth dogs, like Tack II, they'll tree more coons on a light night than your mouthy dogs. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just slip up on them or whatever. But the less noise you make in the woods on a light night, you'll tree more coons.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad, or that's my opinion, just my opinion, but it is mine.
Well, I knew this conversation would bring up a lot of good stuff, and it generates with me the thought about that, when I went to Michigan and started hunting those wood lots, we'd have a mile square or maybe 2 miles square sometimes, and it was flat pretty much. If there was any low places, it'd be a swampy place in there. But those dogs would get into a woods, and the guide said, well, we made too much racket in this woods. We need to get out of here and go to another woods.
I firmly believe in that.
Yeah, and Of course, if you had that dog that could find those coon laying up, and that's one thing the old Bronco dog became in Michigan as he got older. He got to be an ace at finding those layups, as the guy would say, the ones that were just up there sleeping. They said, but no, I agree with that. You can't go in there making all kinds of. One thing we say about coon hunting as a good gateway to young hunters is that they don't have to go out there and they don't have to sit still in the deer stand all day and freeze to death, or they don't have to be quiet on the creek bank. But, but there are some times that a little bit of knowledge of those kind of things will improve your odds. Things like hunting your dogs into the wind in that flat country up in Michigan. If it was a windy night, we always pointed them into the wind. 2 reasons.
That's right.
One, that they get the scent of the game that's in that woods better. And number 2, you can hear them. The wind will carry their voices, So there's a lot of little nuances like of coon hunting that you don't get, just staying on a computer keyboard.
Yeah. There's several good dogs that I would have liked to had pups out of, but I never, never did have the opportunity to get them. But there's a few out there that I really would have liked to have a pup out of.
Yeah. Do you want to mention any of them? Or?
Well, I'll mention one, Montana Scout. He was phenomenal. He was a real hound dog. He would hunt fast, hard, but he'd put his nose into that wind and take off. It didn't matter where the wind was at. And he ran a coon like a dog running a fox. I went up there and pleasure hunted with him one time. He was a great dog. And I'd like to have a pup out of Joe Boy. I never did get nothing. I got out of heat and stuff like that, but I'd like to have one out of Joe Boy too.
Well, you mentioned 2 dogs that I remember very well because I was involved with UKC, just in the middle of it when those dogs were at their peak. And, of course, Greenville back, up in Ohio there had Montana Scout. And he made the cover of Coonhound Bloodlines one time.
Oh, yeah.
Really pretty
I know him well.
Picture, and produced some good dogs. And he was, for sure, a competition dog, a wide hunting dog. And then
he's great.
Kansas Joe Boy, Jim Cannon just recently passed away. People will remember Jim as him and his buddy Spud Reynolds as the only 2 guys to ever win the UKC World Hunt with a Plott dog, and that was the Sizzling Heat dog that you mentioned earlier. And the Kansas Joe Boy dog, which was the Syra Heat, was a dog that I like to see in my pedigrees. And I had an old dog named Wrangler that I won opposite sex at Plott Days with, and he was real heavily Joe Boy bred. So, you mentioned some good ones there, John, for sure.
Yeah. There's more, but that was two of my favorite dogs that I never did get nothing out of. I like to have them in my pack right now. They're blood.
Oh, yeah. Well, what are you breeding anything right now? You got
we got several bred up out of Jack. Got some young dogs out of him here. I got one I'm hunting out of Teddy Morgan's female. Teddy's got a real nice female he bred to Jack, and they come in 50-50. They either love a bear or they love a coon. And the ones that love a coon don't want nothing to do with the bear, and the ones that run the bear don't want nothing to do with the coon.
How about that?
I mean, he's got 2 litters or 2 times crossed, and there's not a pup out of him that won't run a tree. I mean, it's a real good cross.
Well, you gave me an opportunity or mentioned it a while back, and I wish I could have stepped up and got that pup at that time, a pup out of Jack, and I believe it was out of Scrubby Rogers' female?
Well, now Scrubby bred a female. Now she is the female he bred is the sister to Logan. We bred her once. That whole litter's running tree. Well, 90% of them's doing great. I think 1 or 2 of them may have got killed on the road or something, but I got a female here out of her right now. She runs in trees. Her own coon does good. Teddy and his friends down there, they got about 3 of them are using on bear, and they're working real good. So that was another good cross. But right now, Jack's missed a couple females, so he may be about done. He's 9. I'd like to get another good one out of him.
Oh,
Anyway.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, that Teddy sure is a nice fella, and I usually,
He's
when
great,
I
man.
see him anymore, I see you, I see him. So I know he's got to
Yeah.
be a pretty good fellow if you guys are running together. And
He hunts hard, has great dogs. He loves bear hunting and coon hunting, but he cat hunts. He's down right now. He had a hip put in about 8 days ago, but now he's he knows more about a dog for his. Well, he's 50, and I still call him a boy. But he can get more out of a young dog than any man I ever hunted with.
isn't that
But
something?
how many people do you know throw a dog up on a bear rig, 8 weeks old, and go to the grocery store and get a loaf of bread just to teach him to rig on top of the truck?
He's dedicated, isn't he?
He's dedicated. He starts from as soon as they're weaned, they're in Teddy's training program. I'll tell you that now.
They still got the milk on their lips.
Yeah, he's got stages of his where he lives, where he puts them in the start treeing squirrels in his pen, and when they get doing that good, he puts them over in the goat pen to break them off the deer before they ever know what a deer is. He's got a program going.
I tell you, he's a thinking man, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's thinking a day ahead of you.
Real nice fella. I enjoy meeting him. Well, you talked about a hip problem there with Teddy, and then you had 2 hips replaced. My dad had a hip replacement not too long before he passed away, and he used to tell me, he said, Steve, when I get tired in my hips, and I didn't quite understand that. I do now. At my age, I understand real well what Dad was talking about. Thank goodness I haven't had to have anything replaced, but my good buddy Nubbin Moore, who's kind of my running partner, he's had 2 or 3 hip surgeries, and he actually had to have reconstructive surgery later, but recently, I should say. But we're trying to get him back in shape so we can go bear hunting. He's never killed a bear, and he'd like to kill one, so I'd like to see him kill one. So, but
if he'll do what they say when they change that hip out, and don't give up, get up and use it.
Yeah,
a man is like a good coonhound. If that hound dog's got a heart, he'll tree a coon on 3 legs. And if a man wants to go coon hunting, he'll get up off that couch and go coon hunting.
Well, that's right, John, and that's the difference. The ones that kind of you're preaching to me right now, because down here in this hot weather in Florida, it's awful easy just to sit in the air conditioning, Of course, I've said laughingly down here, everything that's out there in the woods wants to eat me and my pup, so down here.
Y'all can keep the alligators and the bad snakes down there, and I'll just stay up here in these mountains and be happy.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the coon hunting situation has kind of changed a little bit for you up there, hasn't it? I mean, as far as the number of coons and all.
Oh, we got coons. We've a friend of mine, Anthony Toller. We treed 8 coons 3 Saturdays ago, and went back same place 2 Saturdays ago before Plott days and treed 5. So we've got coons now. We've got some coons.
You want to send me the GPS coordinates on that the next time I can? My days are
storyteller.
No, my days are running them hills back, ancient history, buddy. But I used to could go, but it's a different day and a different time. Like the old boy said, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Well, there was a time when I could do that and loved it.
Well,
loved hunting them old ridges and climbing up out of Little Blue Stone and all that stuff. But
it's just kind of a mental thing, Steve. When I get out of bed every day, I tell myself I'm 30 years old. Man, I'm getting old. I'm 30, and go out there and act like I'm 30.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that you're going to be at Autumn Oaks, and I'm going to be able to catch up with you there, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more stories to tell. You got a good hunting story to tell me? Something that you remember about one of these hunts with these good Plott dogs, or something that sticks out in your mind?
I'll tell you a story on the Joe Boy dog. I love Jimmy Cannon to death. I drawed Joe Boy one time. We 4 dogs. I believe it was night champion cast. We turn them in there. The dogs strike. Every dog drives out of there. I mean, they're leaving there driving. Everybody struck up at me. Judge said, John, you're going to strike your dog. You know yourself, every one of them dogs left here driving that track. I said, boy, my dog ain't barked. He just looked at me and hit the ground a little bit. About that time, it was Tack II. He struck over to the right of us in there. And I said, that's my dog. You can strike him now. Well, I struck him, and he got treed, and they stayed there, and we went and checked the tree and coon. So they go trying to find they had to leave to find the other dogs. I think he had an hour to get back. Jimmy Cannon jumps up on the truck with his tracker, beep, beep tracker. He said, here's what Jimmy said. He said, Earth to Joe Boy. Earth to Joe Boy. He couldn't pick him up. Jimmy said, I can't get mine back in there. And so they's gone. They finally got back to me. Well, needless to say, that hunt went on anyway. I drawed him again. I drawed Joe Boy again. I had to attack 3 dogs. This time, I spectated Joe Boy. He set me on fire. I've never seen a dog work as good in my life. Ran and treed coons. And I don't believe that night I could have had Tack 1, 2, and 3 hunting again him and touched him. He just, that's the reason I'd like to have a pup out of him. He just done a wonderful job that night. Cannon was a true sportsman, one of the best hunters I ever hunted with. I really loved that guy.
I did too, John. You're going to choke me up here because I've had many, many good long conversations with Jim. And, it's really a shame. And I ask, when I started down the road at this podcasting thing, my buddy Chris Powell there in Indiana, and I started the Houndsman XP podcast. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have the right equipment and all. And we did an interview with Jim Cannon at Plott Days at Tell City, and it didn't turn out. We couldn't use it. And I just asked Chris the other day, I said, could we salvage any of that recording? And he said, no, Steve, it was just a train wreck from beginning to end. But I sure wish I could have done that and, and had that for people to listen to. But I'll never forget that night, 1988, in Mount Gilead, Ohio, when Jim Cannon came in with old Sizzling Heat in first place in that final cast, and was a Plott world champion. Of course, everybody, they knew I loved Plott dogs, so they were kind of slapping me on the back and helping me enjoy the moment. And I had the same thing at PKC in 1999 when John Walkup and Buckeye Bud won the PKC World Hunt with a Plott dog, So Plott people stick together. And
we stick together. You're right.
Yeah, it's a great family to be a part of. If you're out there wondering about getting into a breed, you're going to find jealousy and envy in all breeds, all associations. But I think you'll find a lot of people in the Plott breed that will be willing to help you. Breed if that's a breed you want to take as your own.
If you want a dog to be a lifetime loyal friend, like you're married to him, get a Plott. They got a bond with you that it just you have to own one to feel that bond of a Plott dog.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And the old Hoss dog that we mentioned traveled with me at my best guess about 200,000 miles. I put over 260-some thousand miles on that truck that I bought in 2010, and Hoss rode just about all of those miles with me. And we hunted in several states all over the country, made a lot of friends, had a lot of fun. And so I'm a little bit envious. My partner, Mark, has got this fever pup up there, and he's getting to experience all that for himself. But I hope to be up that way hunting this fall, John, and if I do, I'm going to give you a holler. If we can get to the woods, that'd be super. If not, we can at least have a cup of coffee or a glass of tea or something and talk about old times.
Be like Mr. Fielder, get the old magazine, get the book out and look at the old pictures, something. We'll see. We'll do something.
That's right, for sure. You live in, of course, my favorite part of the world. That's where I was born and raised up until, I went away to service into Michigan, but a lot of good people up there. And folks, you've been listening to John Sturgill, Plott man, I think if you cut him, he breeds brindle. But, John, it's been great to have you on the podcast today, buddy. Is there anything that we probably should have talked about that we didn't?
No, we're good. I want to thank you for inviting me, and it's been a privilege talking with you again.
Well, it always is good for me too, John, and you've been just a great guest. So you get out there with them Plott dogs tonight and think about your old buddy down here in the sauna when you're out there enjoying. Okay, friends, that's John Sturgill from Midway, West Virginia with the Timberline tack line of dogs, and he just keeps on going. He's the Energizer Bunny for sure, and an inspiration to us all. I want to thank you for listening in, and if anybody asks you where's Steve Fielder, you just tell them, well, he's gone to the dogs.